Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt a quiet shift inside you? A feeling that the woman staring back is no longer the same one she used to be? That her smile hides a storm, her silence holds truths too heavy to explain, and her eyes reflect years of giving more than she ever received? This is the moment midlife begins to whisper. It doesn't arrive with chaos. It arrives with clarity, a clarity that can feel both like freedom and destruction. For years you played roles: the perfect partner, the mother, the nurturer, the fixer, the one who held everything together even when you were breaking inside. You built your identity around what others needed, what love demanded, what society praised. And somewhere in between caring for everyone else, you stopped hearing your own voice. But midlife comes like an awakening. It strips away illusions and forces you to meet yourself again, raw, unfiltered, and painfully honest. Suddenly, the things that once mattered lose their meaning. The praise, the comfort, the approval, they don't feed your soul anymore. You begin craving depth, truth, and emotional honesty. You start asking questions you once feared. Who am I without the roles I play? What do I truly want? And most importantly, what if the life I built isn't aligned with the woman I've become? This is where the transformation begins. It's not madness. It's not instability. It's evolution. When a woman reaches midlife, her priorities shift from survival to authenticity. She's no longer driven by the desire to please. She's driven by the hunger to live fully. That hunger threatens everything shallow around her, including relationships that survived only on routine, obligation, or emotional neglect. And this is why marriages often crumble during this phase. Because while she's evolving, he may still be standing still. She's questioning, he's defending, she's seeking truth, he's avoiding discomfort. She's ready to break the patterns, he's holding on to them. What was once balance now becomes tension. What once felt safe now feels suffocating. But don't mistake this transformation as destruction. It's renewal. It's a storm that clears what's fake, so something real can finally grow. A woman in midlife doesn't lose herself. She finally finds herself. Her tears are not weakness, they're cleansing. Her distance is not rejection, it's reclamation. Her silence is not coldness, it's wisdom learning to speak without apology. If you felt this shift, that ache to rediscover who you are, that quiet frustration that your life doesn't reflect your soul anymore, stay. Because this journey isn't about ending something, it's about beginning something far greater. You're not breaking down, you're breaking free. You're shedding the layers of who you were told to be so you can rise into who you truly are. This is not the end of your love, your worth, or your purpose. It's the rebirth of all three. Midlife doesn't destroy you. It unmasks you. And in that truth lies your greatest power, the power to rebuild your life not around expectations, but around truth. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you how to turn this awakening into your greatest transformation. Truth is, midlife doesn't change a woman. It reveals her. It peels back every layer she built to survive. The smile she wore when she wanted to scream, the patience she practiced when she wanted to be understood, the love she gave without ever being truly seen. It all unravels under the weight of one simple realization, that she cannot keep betraying herself to keep the peace. She begins to feel the quiet cost of her own silence, the fatigue of holding everyone else's happiness while her own heart runs empty. That's when the transformation turns inward. It's not loud, not visible, but it's powerful beyond measure. There's a shift that happens in her mind. She stops looking for validation and starts craving alignment. She no longer wants to be admired. She wants to be understood. She no longer wants to be needed. She wants to be valued. These are not selfish desires. They're the natural evolution of a soul that's tired of pretending. And when that awareness blooms, it challenges every relationship built on routine rather than real connection. Many men don't see it coming. They think she's just moody, distant, or going through a phase. But it's not a phase. It's awakening. It's the moment she realizes that emotional intimacy cannot survive without honesty, that marriage cannot thrive on comfort alone, that love must grow or it dies. She's no longer afraid of the truth, even if it breaks what's been standing for years, because she finally understands. What's real will remain, and what's fake must fall. This is the invisible storm that shakes the foundation of so many marriages. One partner is awakening, the other is resisting. She's evolving from dependence to self-respect, from compliance to clarity. And when she no longer fears being alone, she becomes unstoppable. Because nothing terrifies a broken sister more than a woman who's no longer afraid to walk away from it. But here's the beauty most people miss. Midlife doesn't destroy love, it purifies it. It strips it down to its core. When she stops pretending, she gives her partner the invitation to stop pretending too. When she demands truth, she offers freedom. When she reclaims her worth, she challenges him to rise and meet her there. This transformation can either separate two souls who were never meant to last, or forge a deeper, more conscious connection than ever before. It all depends on whether both are willing to evolve. Because love, at its highest form, isn't about security. It's about growth. It's not about comfort. It's about awakening. The old version of love was survival. The new version is expansion. And that expansion can be terrifying, but it's also the only kind that lasts. So if you feel the tension, if your relationship feels unstable, don't see it as failure. See it as truth demanding to be heard. You are not losing something. You are being invited to rebuild it with honesty, depth, and courage. You're not the same person you were 20 years ago, and that's not wrong. That's proof you're alive, evolving, becoming. Midlife isn't the end of love. It's the rebirth of real love. The kind that starts when you finally stop abandoning yourself. When a woman reaches the middle of her life, something remarkable happens within her mind and body. The noise that once controlled her begins to quiet, and the truth she ignored for years starts to rise. She begins to see patterns that once went unnoticed. How often she settled, how many times she swallowed her pain just to avoid conflict, how deeply she longed for connection but kept pretending she was fine. Her tolerance for pretending begins to die, and in its place grows an unshakable desire for authenticity. This isn't rebellion, it's awakening. And with that awakening, she starts to demand a deeper form of life, one built not on comfort but on consciousness. For decades, women were taught that their value lies in their ability to hold everything together, to be nurturing, soft, patient, endlessly giving. And they did. But every act of self-sacrifice leaves a trace of silence inside, a silence that grows louder over time. Midlife turns that silence into a voice, and that voice starts asking, "What about me?" It's a question that changes everything. Because once it's asked, it can never be silenced again. That question shakes marriages, friendships, and entire identities built on being who everyone else needed her to be. And this is where many relationships begin to fracture. Not because she stops loving, but because she starts loving differently. She stops seeking validation and starts seeking truth. She stops trying to fix everything and starts allowing what's broken to reveal itself. She no longer hides behind the illusion of harmony if that harmony costs her peace. Her heart still wants love, but not the kind that demands she disappear to keep it. She wants connection that sees her fully, honors her essence, and grows alongside her. But many partners are unprepared for this new energy. They misinterpret her clarity as coldness, her boundaries as rejection, her silence as distance. Yet what's truly happening is deeper than they can understand. She is reclaiming herself. She is not pulling away, she is returning home to her own soul. This journey is not against anyone, it's for her. For the first time in her life, she's not asking for permission to feel whole. And that power can either heal a relationship or expose every hidden crack within it. The marriages that survive this storm are the ones that adapt, where both people learn to meet each other again as equals, as conscious beings growing through change instead of running from it. But when one partner refuses to evolve, when he clings to the old version of her, believing she should stay small to keep him comfortable, the relationship begins to collapse under the weight of his resistance. It's not her transformation that destroys the marriage. It's his fear of facing his own. And yet, even in the ruins, there's beauty. Because when a woman finally stands in her truth, she stops chasing love that requires her to shrink. She begins to build a life that reflects who she truly is, wise, grounded, whole. Her transformation may unsettle others, but it liberates her. She becomes the embodiment of truth itself, a living reminder that real growth often demands letting go. Midlife doesn't break her. It births her into the woman she was always meant to be. The greatest truth about transformation is that it demands honesty, and honesty is rarely comfortable. When a woman begins to see her life with new eyes, she can no longer live in the shadows of half-truths. She starts to see where love became obligation, where connection turned into duty, where her own dreams were quietly buried beneath the weight of expectations. This awareness doesn't come to destroy her world. It comes to free her from the illusion that survival is the same as living. Midlife doesn't just awaken her heart, it clears her vision. It exposes everything built on fear and invites her to rebuild from a place of truth. But truth can be a painful mirror. It shows her how often she stayed when she wanted to go. It reminds her of every moment she dimmed her light so others wouldn't feel small. It confronts her with the reality that she's been loved for what she provides, not always for who she is. This realization doesn't fill her with anger. It fills her with clarity. Because for the first time, she understands that love without respect is emptiness, and commitment without emotional depth is a cage. She's no longer willing to live in either. The woman she's becoming no longer runs from discomfort. She walks into it, because she knows discomfort is the birthplace of freedom. Every time she speaks her truth, she breaks another invisible chain. Every time she sets a boundary, she honors her worth. Every time she refuses to shrink, she reclaims a piece of her soul. This is not rebellion, it's self-respect. And it's the reason so many marriages struggle when a woman reaches this point. She's no longer willing to carry the emotional weight for two. She's no longer willing to keep peace at the cost of her own spirit. When she stops pretending, the dynamic shifts. The relationship is forced to confront its foundation. If love was real, it will deepen. If it was performance, it will collapse. This is the moment of truth many couples fear, because it demands evolution. It requires both to rise beyond comfort and into consciousness. It asks both to face themselves without excuses. Some do, and they find a love more powerful than before. Others don't, and they lose what was never truly theirs to begin with. But through it all, she keeps rising. She learns that peace is not something someone else can give her. It's something she builds when she no longer betrays herself. She learns that fulfillment is not found in being chosen, but in choosing herself. She learns that love, in its truest form, is not about possession. It's about presence. When she stops living from fear, she becomes magnetic, radiant, unshakable. Her energy shifts from needing to knowing, from chasing to attracting. And that is what midlife is meant to do, to strip away everything false so that only what's real remains. It doesn't destroy the woman, it liberates her. It teaches her that endings are not failures, they're thresholds. That love is not lost when something ends. It's reborn in a higher form when truth finally leads the way. She realizes that she never needed to be saved. She only needed to be seen. And now, at last, she sees herself. Once a woman begins to truly see herself, she can no longer unsee the truth. She can no longer live inside patterns that drain her spirit or pretend that emotional distance is normal. What once felt acceptable now feels unbearable. The quiet loneliness she carried for years becomes visible, and she finally acknowledges it not as weakness, but as a signal from her soul. It's her inner self calling her back. Back to authenticity. Back to aliveness. Back to the woman she was always meant to be before the world told her who she should become. This is the moment many mistake for crisis, but it's not. It's clarity. The shedding of false identities can look like chaos from the outside, but inside it's sacred realignment. She's not falling apart, she's falling into place. She begins to understand that her worth was never tied to being needed, desired, or chosen. It was always tied to being whole. And the deeper she reconnects with herself, the more she realizes how many pieces of her power she gave away over the years, to relationships, to expectations, to fear. Now she gathers them back, one truth at a time. Psychologically, this transformation is profound. It's the point where external validation loses its grip and self-awareness takes over. The brain begins to rewire itself around new priorities. Peace over approval, depth over drama, purpose over distraction. Emotional maturity replaces emotional dependency. She starts choosing experiences that expand her rather than confine her. Every decision she makes now comes from consciousness, not conditioning. This shift is not just emotional, it's spiritual. It's the awakening of a mind and heart that refuse to live half alive. And yet, this evolution often exposes the gap between who she has become and who her partner still is. When one person evolves and the other remains unchanged, the emotional distance widens. Communication starts to fail because they're no longer speaking the same emotional language. He may still crave routine, while she now craves depth. He may want things to go back to how they were, but she knows she can never return to what she's already outgrown. This disconnection isn't born of resentment. It's born of transformation. Her heart still holds love, but her soul refuses to stay where it's unseen. Many women feel guilt during this phase. They fear being judged for wanting more. They fear being labeled difficult, cold, or ungrateful. But what they're truly seeking is not escape. It's alignment. It's the right to exist as their full selves without apology, to be loved not for their role, but for their truth. This kind of love cannot exist within illusion. It demands two conscious beings, both awake, both brave enough to face themselves. Anything less feels empty, no matter how comfortable it once seemed. So she begins to let go, not with anger, but with grace. She stops chasing what resists understanding her. She stops begging to be seen by eyes that refuse to open. Instead, she redirects that energy inward. She nurtures her mind, her body, her purpose. She rebuilds her connection with her inner power, the quiet strength that doesn't need to be loud to be unstoppable. She learns that solitude is not loneliness, it's sovereignty. And as she steps fully into that power, everything begins to shift. The same world that once demanded her obedience now bows to her authenticity. She becomes a mirror of truth, a force of calm confidence that no longer seeks permission to exist. The woman she was dies quietly, but the woman she becomes, she is unbreakable, unshakable, and finally free. Freedom changes everything. Once a woman tastes it, she can never go back to a life where her voice is muted and her truth is hidden. The same silence that once kept her safe now feels unbearable. She begins to understand that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of authenticity. For years, she confused comfort with connection, loyalty with love, endurance with strength. Now she knows better. True connection only thrives where both souls are awake, and true strength is found in the courage to stop pretending. This realization doesn't come without pain. Growth always asks for a price. She must mourn the versions of herself that lived to please the years she spent shrinking so others could feel tall, the energy she poured into people who only loved her when she was easy to control. It's a quiet grief, one that few will understand, but it's also sacred because it marks the death of illusion and the birth of power. She is no longer seeking to be understood by everyone. She is seeking to be true to herself, even if that truth makes others uncomfortable. There comes a point where she stops arguing for her worth. She stops explaining her needs to those who never tried to meet them. She stops chasing closure from people who built walls instead of bridges. This is not bitterness, it's awakening. The need for external validation dissolves because she now validates herself. Every time she chooses peace over people-pleasing, her confidence deepens. Every time she says no to what drains her, her soul breathes easier. Every time she chooses truth over tolerance, she steps further into alignment with who she truly is. This energy is magnetic. It draws respect from those capable of depth and repels those who feed on control. The woman who once feared being alone now walks with calm certainty because she has discovered the rarest kind of love, self-trust. That trust becomes her compass. She no longer doubts her intuition or silences her instincts. She listens to the quiet wisdom inside her, and it never lies. It guides her toward peace, toward purpose, toward people who vibrate at the same frequency of truth. For some, her transformation is uncomfortable to witness. The same strength that once inspired admiration now triggers insecurity, but she no longer bends to make others feel safe in her light. Her evolution is not an apology, it's a declaration that her soul matters. She no longer trades authenticity for acceptance because she's learned that any love that requires self-betrayal isn't love. It's dependency wearing a mask. Psychologically, this is the turning point of empowerment. The survival mode that once ruled her nervous system begins to dissolve. Her body relaxes, her mind sharpens, her emotions stabilize. She begins to live from choice, not fear. Every cell in her body starts to align with the vibration of freedom. And from that space, she no longer seeks completion through others. She becomes complete within herself. This is why midlife doesn't destroy her. It refines her. It turns pain into purpose. loss into liberation, endings into new beginnings. The woman she was needed permission. The woman she is now needs truth. And that truth becomes her foundation, steady, strong, and unshakable. Nothing external can define her anymore, because she has become the source of her own peace. There comes a stage when a woman stops chasing life and starts aligning with it. She no longer rushes, forces, or pleads for things to work. She understands that anything meant for her will meet her where she stands, not where she hides. The frantic energy that once drove her begins to dissolve, replaced by a deep calm that only self-awareness can bring. She no longer fears losing people or things because she has already faced the greatest loss of all, the loss of herself. Having found her again, she refuses to let her go. This new clarity changes the way she loves. She no longer confuses attachment with devotion or obligation with loyalty. Her love becomes mature, conscious, and grounded in truth. She loves deeply but without desperation. She gives freely but without self-erasure. She knows her worth, and that knowledge shapes her boundaries like invisible armor. Love no longer defines her. It complements her. Relationships are no longer her refuge, they are her reflection. If the energy she gives is not mirrored back in respect and effort, she no longer begs for balance. She walks away with grace. The emotional dependency that once tethered her to unfulfilling connections is replaced by inner stability. Psychology calls this individuation, the process of becoming whole within oneself. It's not about isolation, it's about integration. She merges her strength with her softness, her logic with her intuition, her fire with her stillness. Every part of her that was once fragmented begins to unite. That wholeness radiates outward, and it changes how she shows up in every space she enters. She no longer needs to prove anything. Her presence speaks for her. But this evolution can be confronting for those around her. Some will see her growth as distance, her peace as pride, her independence as rebellion. Yet what they're truly seeing is a mirror reflecting their own unhealed fears. Her transformation exposes the parts of others that are still asleep. Some will rise with her, others will resist. Either way, she keeps moving forward, because she finally understands that not everyone is meant to go where she's headed. The cost of authenticity is losing those who preferred your illusion. Still, there's no bitterness in her heart, only gratitude. She thanks every version of herself that endured heartbreak, confusion, and exhaustion. Every breakdown was a lesson. Every disappointment was redirection. Every ending was protection. She realizes that the pain that once made her question her worth was never punishment. It was preparation. It was shaping her into the woman who could stand in her truth without flinching. This is what liberation feels like, not loud or dramatic, but grounded and clear. She wakes up without anxiety about who she needs to be today because she already is. She stops over-explaining herself because peace doesn't require defense. She walks differently, speaks differently, breathes differently. There's light in her eyes that no one gave her. She found it in the darkness. And this is the essence of midlife transformation. It doesn't destroy a woman. It refines her into someone unstoppable. It's the point where survival ends and living begins. She has learned that love, success, and peace aren't found by chasing approval. They're created by standing fully in authenticity. She no longer seeks to fit into the world. She builds one that fits her soul. When a woman reaches the point where she no longer fears her own truth, she becomes a force that cannot be contained. The approval she once chased now feels meaningless compared to the peace that comes from self-respect. The same world that once demanded her obedience now has to reckon with her authenticity. She no longer exists to play small so others can feel comfortable. She no longer hides her emotions, her needs, or her dreams. She has learned that silence may keep the peace, but it destroys the soul. So she speaks, not to argue, but to liberate herself from the weight of pretending. Her transformation is not loud, but it is undeniable. It shows in the way she walks, steady, present, unapologetic. It shows in the way she makes decisions, no longer from fear, but from alignment. She no longer asks, will they like me? Instead, she asks, is this true to me? That shift in awareness changes everything. It redefines her relationships, her choices, her very sense of purpose. She starts building a life that feels like her, not one that looks good to others. The performance ends and authenticity begins. This evolution also alters her relationship with love. She no longer falls for potential, she looks for presence. She no longer believes that love must be earned through sacrifice. She understands that real love thrives in equality. She doesn't want to be completed. She wants to be complemented. Her love now comes from abundance, not emptiness. It flows from knowing that she is already whole. That shift terrifies those who benefited from her doubt. But she's done negotiating her worth. The woman who once begged to be chosen now understands she was the choice all along. Psychologically, this is the stage of emotional mastery. Her nervous system no longer operates in survival mode. She doesn't react. She responds. She doesn't chase closure. She creates it within herself. She doesn't absorb others' chaos. She protects her peace like sacred ground. She's learned that boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to healthy connection. Her calm is not indifference. It's power in its purest form. This balance of softness and strength gives her an aura of quiet command. She doesn't need to prove her value because her energy speaks it for her. The world often misinterprets this kind of woman. Some call her distant, others call her intimidating. But she is neither. She's simply no longer available for anything that asks her to betray her own spirit. She refuses to participate in emotional games or carry responsibilities that aren't hers. Her compassion remains, but is guided by discernment now. She gives with awareness, not obligation. She helps without losing herself in the process. Her love still runs deep, but it flows wisely, not blindly. And as she stands fully in this truth, something extraordinary happens. The pain that once haunted her becomes her wisdom. The tears that once broke her become her strength. Every wound transforms into a lesson. Every loss into a doorway. She no longer resents the storms that once tore her apart because she realizes they were the very winds that set her free. She understands now that midlife was never her ending. It was the initiation into her truest, most powerful self, the woman who no longer survives life but creates it with purpose, grace, and unstoppable authenticity.